wiped the grease from his hands and stared at the broken engine. It was past midnight on the orbital station, and everyone else had gone home. The cargo ship needed to leave by morning, but the cooling system was completely dead. He had been working on it for 6 hours straight. The station called New Seoul floated high above Earth. It was a busy place where humans worked on ships that traveled between planets, had been fixing engines here for 5 years. It was honest work, but nothing special. He rarely saw the aliens who controlled the Galactic Collective. They had their own sections of the station, places where humans were not welcome. Reached deep into the engine compartment, trying to reconnect a damaged wire. His fingers barely fit into the tight space. The original designers had never thought a human would need to repair this. They made everything for their own kind. "This is impossible," muttered to himself, but he kept trying anyway. Giving up was not something he did easily. A bright light suddenly filled the cargo bay, pulled his hand out quickly and turned around. The light was so beautiful it almost hurt to look at. It moved like water, flowing through the air in gentle waves. Slowly, the light took shape. It became something that looked almost human but clearly was not. The being seemed to be made of pure light. It had a face, arms, and legs, but they all glowed with soft colors that shifted from blue to gold to white. And it was smiling. The smile looked kind, but there was something strange about it. It never changed. It never moved. "Hello," the being said. Its voice sounded like music. Took a step back. His heart was beating fast. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" "My name is," the being said. And I have come with important news." Had heard of everyone had. They were ancient and powerful. They almost never showed themselves to anyone. Even the leaders of the Galactic Collective rarely saw them, and they certainly never spoke to humans. "Why are you here?" asked. He looked around for security cameras, wondering if anyone else was seeing this. Smile somehow seemed to grow warmer. "I'm your chosen companion," they said simply. Stared, the words made no sense. "My what?" "Your companion. I have chosen you. From this moment forward, we are bonded." "Bonded? I don't understand. Is this some kind of joke?" Moved closer. Their light made everything in the cargo bay look magical. "It is not a joke. It is a great honor. My kind only choose one companion every 1,000 years. We select beings who show special potential, beings who matter to the future." Felt dizzy. "But I'm nobody. I'm just a mechanic. I fix broken engines. Why would you choose me?" That said, is the question everyone will ask, including yourself. Before could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the hallways outside. He heard shouting and the sound of running feet. The security team had detected his presence. "You need to hide," said quickly. "The security here doesn't like surprises." "I do not hide," replied calmly. "Let them come." The cargo bay doors burst open. A dozen security officers rushed in, weapons drawn. Leading them was Lee, the chief of station security. His face was red with anger and fear. "Step away from that human," shouted at. "Did not move. I am harming no one, Chief Lee. I am simply speaking with my chosen companion." His eyes went wide, his weapon lowered slightly. "You're chosen? That's impossible. No has ever chosen a human." "Until now," said. The security team looked at each other in confusion. They had trained for many emergencies, but not for this. Slowly lowered his weapon completely. "You did not shoot at a. That would bring the wrath of the entire Galactic Collective down on the station." "I need to report this," said. "This is beyond my authority." "Of course," agreed. "Report to whomever you wish. The choice has been made, it cannot be undone." Within an hour, the cargo bay was filled with people. Human officials rushed in from the station offices. Alien representatives arrived from the collective sectors. Camera drones floated everywhere, recording everything. Stood in the middle of it all, completely lost. Remained by his side, still smiling. A tall woman in an expensive suit pushed through the crowd. Her name was, and she was Earth's ambassador to the collective. She looked at like he was a puzzle she needed to solve. "Mister," she said, "do you have any idea what this means?" "No," answered honestly. "I was just fixing an engine." Turn 2. With respect honored, why have you chosen this human? He has no special training, no political importance, no scientific achievements. Smile never wavered. He has something far more valuable than any of those things. What's demanded? That is for him to discover, replied, and for you all to witness. An alien stepped forward from the crowd. It looked like a massive insect with 4 arms and huge black eyes. Its translator box crackled to life. The collective council demands an explanation. Humans have been part of our civilization for only 15 years. They are primitive, violent, unstable. Why would you honor them this way? Turned to face the alien. For the first time, their smile seemed to have an edge to it. Counselor, your people have been part of the collective for 12,000 years. In all that time, have I chosen any of you? Stepped back, clearly angry but unable to argue. I choose whom I choose, continued. I see what I see, and I see great things in this human. Felt everyone's eyes on him. Some looked amazed, some looked jealous, some looked afraid. He wanted to disappear. He wanted to wake up and find this was all a dream. But reached out and placed a glowing hand on his shoulder. The touch was warm and somehow comforting. "Do not fear," said softly. "You are exactly where you need to be, and you are exactly who you need to be." Looked into his glowing face. The smile was still there, eternal and mysterious. He had no idea what was going to happen next. He had no idea why he had been chosen. But somewhere deep inside, something told him his life would never be the same. The broken engine behind them suddenly hummed to life. No one had touched it. It simply started working again, as if fixed by invisible hands. Smile grew just a little bit brighter. 3 days had passed since appeared in his life. Nothing felt normal anymore. Wherever he went, people stared. News reporters followed him. Security guards watched his every move, and was always there, glowing softly beside him like a living star. Sat in his small apartment, drinking coffee and trying to understand his new reality. Floated near the window, looking out at the stars. "Can you read my mind?" asked suddenly. "Not your thoughts," replied without turning. "But I can feel your emotions. Right now you are confused and tired. You wish things would go back to normal." "Can they?" "No, nothing is ever the same after a choosing." Set down his coffee cup. "Why won't you tell me why you chose me? Everyone keeps asking and I have no answer." Finally turned to face him. "Would you believe me if I told you now, or do you need to see it for yourself first?" Before could answer, his door chimed. He opened it to find his oldest friend standing there. Park Hay looked excited and worried at the same time. She had been his friend since childhood, back on Earth before either of them came to the station. "Can I come in?" Hay asked. "I promise I'm not here as a scientist, I'm here as your friend." Smiled for the first time in days. "Come in." Hay worked as a studying alien cultures and biology. She had always loved learning about other species. Now she could barely take her eyes off. "This is incredible," she whispered. "A reel in my friend's apartment." "Hello, Park Hay," said warmly. "I have heard much about you from memories." Hay blinked. "You can see his memories. Only the ones connected to strong feelings. You appear in many of them. You are important to him." Hay sat down, pulling out her tablet. "I've been researching your species. There's not much information available. The collective keeps most of it classified, but I found some old records. Only bond with species at crucial moments in their evolution. Is that true?" "Yes," confirmed. "So humanity is at a crucial moment." "Perhaps, or perhaps humanity has always been at a crucial moment. Your species lives in constant change." It is one of your most interesting features." Lee arrived an hour later, also asking to speak with. The security chief looked uncomfortable standing in the small apartment with a present. "I need to be honest with you," said Tu. "The collective council is not happy about this. They're demanding investigations. They want to know if has been compromised somehow, if this is some kind of trick." "I am not compromised," said calmly, "and this is not a trick." "Then why?" asked, his frustration showing. "Why choose a human? We're the species in the collective. We barely understand half the technology we use. Most aliens see us as children playing with dangerous toys." And yet said, "Here I am." Later that evening, asked to come with them to the alien sectors of the station. These were the expensive areas where the advanced species lived and worked. Humans were allowed to visit, but most never did. They knew they were not welcome. Walking through the gleaming corridors felt strange. Everything was clean and perfect. The architecture was beautiful in ways human buildings never were. Aliens of dozens of species moved past them. Some stopped to stare at and their human companion. "They are afraid," observed. "Not of me, of what it means that I chose you." "What does it mean?" asked. "Change. Species who have been comfortable at the top of the hierarchy now must wonder if their position is secure. It makes them nervous." Took to a viewing platform that overlooked a massive garden. Inside, plants from 100 different worlds grew together in perfect harmony. The colors and shapes were like nothing had ever seen. "This is beautiful," said. "It is also fake," replied. "These plants are not really growing together. The collective controls every aspect of this garden. The temperature, the light, the soil, the water. Nothing is left to chance. Nothing is allowed to be wild or unpredictable." "What's wrong with that?" "Nothing and everything. Safety has a cost. Control requires sacrifice. The collective has forgotten how to take risks. They have forgotten how to grow beyond what they can predict and manage." Before could ask more, alarms began blaring. The peaceful garden scene vanished as emergency lights activated. An automated voice announced that a reactor on the lower levels was failing. Everyone needed to evacuate immediately. People began running for the exits. The panic was quiet and orderly, but it was still panic. Looked at. "We should go," he said. "No," replied, "we should help." Felt his mechanic instincts kick in. "The reactor is 12 levels down. By the time we get there." "I can transport us," said, extending a glowing hand. "If you trust me." Grab's hand without thinking. The world dissolved into light. A second later, they were standing in the reactor chamber. Engineers of 3 different species were frantically working at control panels. None of their solutions were working. The lead engineer, a being that looked like a floating crystal, turned to them in surprise. "What are you doing here? This area is restricted." "I'm a mechanic," said, moving toward the reactor core. "Let me see what's wrong." "You, a human. This is collective technology, far beyond your understanding." But was already looking at the reactor. It was huge and complex, but the basic problem was simple. A cooling line had ruptured, and the automated systems were trying to compensate in ways that only made things worse. "Turn off the automatic controls," said. "That's insane," the crystal engineer protested. "The safety systems are all that's keeping this from exploding." "Your safety systems are fighting each other," explained, pointing at the displays. "Look, this system is trying to cool the core while that one is trying to heat it to maintain balance. They're stuck in a loop. You need to shut them down and do it manually." "And if you're wrong," the engineer demanded. "Then we die. But if you keep doing what you're doing, we die anyway. At least my way we have a chance." The crystal being hesitated, then made a decision. "Do it." And the engineering team worked together. He showed them which systems to disable and in what order. Then he climbed into the reactor housing itself, using his small human size to reach places the larger aliens could not. He reconnected cooling lines by hand, ignoring the heat that made his skin burn. 40 minutes later, the reactor stabilized. The alarm stopped. The danger was over. The crystal engineer stared at with something like respect. I did not think a human could understand our systems. I didn't understand them, admitted, his hands shaking from adrenaline. But broken things work the same everywhere. You just have to figure out what's fighting what. As they left the reactor chamber, walked beside him, smiling as always. But now there was something else in that smile. Pride, maybe, or satisfaction. You see, said quietly, you already know why I chose you, you just don't believe it yet. That night Hay came to his apartment again. She looked excited. I need to show you something, she said, pulling up files on her tablet. After the reactor incident, other aliens started talking. Some of them are scared. They're saying that if I chose a human, it means something big is coming, something that will change everything. Looked at the glowing figure standing by his window. Is that true? Turned to face them both. The smile was there, eternal and knowing. Change is always coming. The question is never if. The question is who will guide it. And you think I can? I think, said, that you already do. Every time you fix something broken, every time you refuse to give up, every time you find solutions that others cannot see, you are changing things piece by piece without even realizing it. Sat down heavily. The weight of words pressed on him. He was just a mechanic, just a regular person. But looking at his friend's hopeful face and this eternal smile, he began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, there was more to him than he thought. Outside the window, the stars shined bright and endless, full of possibilities he was only beginning to understand. The summons came 2 weeks after chose. The Galactic Collective Council wanted answers, and they wanted them now. Stood in his apartment, holding the official message, feeling sick to his stomach. I have to go to the council chambers, he asked, on the main collective station. Yes, replied. They wish to understand why I chose you. It is their right to ask. What do I tell them? The truth, that you do not fully know yourself. Ambassador arrived an hour later to prepare for the meeting. She looked stressed. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. This is a disaster, she said, packing around his apartment. The council is split. Half of them think choosing a human is an insult to the advanced species. The other half thinks it's a sign that humans are more dangerous than they realized. Either way, they're not happy. What do they want from me? Asked. Proof, evidence, something that explains why you deserve this honor. Stopped packing and looked at him directly. Mister, I need you to understand. If this goes badly, it's not just about you. It could affect Earth's entire position in the collective. They could reduce our access, limit our trade, even expel us completely. Felt the weight of millions of lives settling on his shoulders. No pressure, right? The journey to the main collective station took 6 hours by shuttle. Spent most of it silent, watching the stars pass by. Sat beside him, glowing softly, seemingly unbothered by everything. Are you nervous? Finally asked. No, replied. I have appeared before many councils over many centuries. They always react the same way. Fear wrapped in anger, curiosity hidden beneath pride. That doesn't make me feel better. It should. It means they are predictable, and predictable things are easier to navigate. The council chambers were enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high that could barely see the top. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in circular tiers that surrounded a central platform. Had never felt so small. He walked to the center platform, gliding beside him. Thousands of eyes watched their every move. Some belonged to beings that looked almost human. Others belonged to creatures so alien that could not even understand their basic anatomy. A voice boomed through the chamber, amplified and translated into every language at once. This session of the Galactic Collective Council is now in order. We are here to investigate the unprecedented choosing of a human companion by the known as The speaker was a massive being that resembled a tree more than an animal. Its bark-like skin was covered in glowing symbols. The tree being continued, "You have not chosen a companion in 1,047 years. Your last choice was of the people, who went on to lead their species into a golden age of peace and prosperity. Why now choose a human, a species barely out of their home solar system?" His voice filled the chamber, musical and clear. "I choose whom I choose. I am not required to explain my decisions to this council." "Perhaps not," another voice called out. This one belonged to the insect-like alien who had challenged before. "But we are required to protect the collective. Humans are violent. They have wars on their own planet even now. They fight among themselves over resources, religion, and pride. What happens when you give such a species validation? When you tell them they are special?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. "If I may speak," said, his voice small compared to the others but still carrying through the room. The tree being seemed surprised. "The human wishes to address the council." "Yes," said his heart pounding. "I want to answer Counselor's question. He's right. Humans do fight. We do have wars. We're not perfect, but we're also not finished growing. We're still learning, still changing." "That is precisely the problem," hissed. "You are unstable, unpredictable, dangerous." "Maybe," agreed. "But we're also stubborn. When something breaks, we don't give up on it. We try to fix it even when everyone says it's impossible, even when logic says we should quit." He thought about the broken engine on the cargo ship, about the reactor he had saved, about every impossible repair he had ever attempted. "Your species optimized yourselves," continued, looking around at the assembled aliens. "You removed your flaws, made yourselves logical and efficient, but maybe in doing that you lost something too, the ability to try impossible things, the willingness to hope when hope doesn't make sense." The chamber fell silent, could feel the weight of their judgment. Then alarms began to scream. Red lights flashed throughout the station. The tree being symbols turned from blue to crimson. "Emergency," a voice announced. "Multiple outer colonies are under attack. Unknown hostile force. All ships destroyed, all defenses penetrated." Chaos erupted in the chamber. Representatives shouted questions and demands. Data streams appeared in the air, showing destroyed planets and silent distress signals. In minutes, 12 colonies had gone dark. Whatever was attacking them moved faster than anything the collective had ever seen. "What is it?" someone shouted. "We don't know," another replied. "Our sensors can't identify it. It's like nothing in our databases." More colonies fell silent. The attacks were accelerating. Panic spread through the council like wildfire. Stepped forward, their light growing brighter. "It is called the Silence, an ancient intelligence that was part of the collective long ago before any of your current species joined. It was exiled for being too dangerous. Now it has returned." "How do we fight it?" demanded. "You cannot," said simply. "Your weapons will not work. Your logic will not reach it. The silence exists beyond your understanding." "Then we are doomed." "Turn to look at, perhaps, unless someone can find a way to communicate with it, to understand what it wants." The tree being's symbols flickered. "Our best scientists have been trying to communicate. All attempts have failed." "Your best scientists think like you do," said, an idea forming in his mind. "What if that's the problem? What if the silence doesn't respond to logic and data? What if it needs something else?" "Like what?" asked from the observers section. "I don't know, something emotional, something that speaks to feelings instead of facts." Looked at. "You said the silence was exiled for being dangerous. What if it wasn't dangerous? What if it was just different? What if the collective couldn't understand it, so they pushed it away?" Smile grew somehow warmer. "An interesting theory." "I have someone on New Soul who might be able to help," said. "A human, an artist. Her name is Han. She creates communication through colors and sounds, things that reach people emotionally." made a clicking sound of disbelief. You want to fight an ancient cosmic threat with art? This is insane. Maybe, agreed, but your way isn't working, at least let us try. The council argued for 20 minutes. Some called this idea foolish, others said it was their only chance. Finally, the tree being made a decision. Very well, the human may attempt his solution, but if it fails, we will use our final option. Which is, asked. We will destroy our own colonies before the silence can reach the inner systems. We will sacrifice billions to save trillions. Felt cold. Give me 3 days. If I can't reach the silence by then, you can do what you need to do. As the council session ended, and everyone rushed to prepare for the coming battle, walked beside through the crowded corridors. You are beginning to understand, said quietly. Understand what? Why I chose you. You see problems differently than they do. Where they see threats to destroy, you see broken things to fix. Where they see logic and force, you see connection and hope. I just don't want billions of people to die. Exactly, replied, their smile radiant. That is exactly why you are my chosen companion, because to you, every life matters, every problem deserves a solution, and you will try impossible things simply because they need to be tried. Looked out a viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, the silence was destroying colonies. Somewhere out there, billions of people were counting on him to do the impossible. He took a deep breath and started making plans. If art could save the galaxy, then he would find a way to make it happen. After all, fixing broken things was what he did best. Han arrived on the collective station 18 hours later. She was a small woman with paint-stained hands and wild hair. She looked around at the massive alien structures with wide eyes, both amazed and terrified. She said when she saw him, "What have you got me into?" "Something impossible," he replied honestly. "I need you to help me talk to something that might destroy the galaxy." Laughed nervously. Just another normal day then. They gathered in a research lab that the council had provided. And stood around a large table covered in equipment. Outside the windows, collective warships prepared for battle, just in case plan failed. "Explain it to me again," said. "What exactly is the silence?" Hay pulled up holographic data. According to the old records showed us, the silence was one of the first members of the collective, billions of years ago. It was powerful and intelligent, but it thought differently than the other species. It felt things too strongly. It experienced emotions that the logical species couldn't understand. So they kicked it out, said, because it was too emotional. They feared it, corrected. Fear often looks like anger. Anger often looks like exile. And now it's destroying colonies, added. But not with weapons, it's more like the colonies just stop. No explosions, no fighting, they just go silent, everything shuts down. Walked to the window, looking out at the stars. So it's angry. It's been alone for billions of years and now it's lashing out. That is our theory, confirmed. Then we need to show it we understand, that we see its pain. Turn back to them, her artist's mind already working. I need materials, sound generators, light projectors, anything that can create patterns, and I need to understand what the silence is feeling. How can we know that? Hay asked. By looking at what it's doing. Show me maps of which colonies it attacked first. They spent hours analyzing the pattern of attacks, looked at them with an artist's eye, seeing things the scientists had missed. The silence wasn't attacking randomly. It was moving in a spiral pattern, starting from the outer edge of the collective space and moving inward. It's searching, said suddenly. Look, it goes to a colony and when it doesn't find what it wants, it moves to the next one. It's not destroying things for revenge. It's looking for something. What could it be looking for? Wondered. Light dimmed slightly. Perhaps it is looking for someone who will listen, someone who will try to understand rather than attack. Then let's give it that, said. They worked through the night. created a communication device unlike anything the collective had ever seen. It used colors that shifted in complex patterns, sounds that ranged from barely audible to nearly painful, and light that pulsed in rhythms that felt almost alive. Traditional communication uses data, explained as she worked. This and that, true and false, but emotions don't work that way. Emotions are messy, they're contradictory, they're complex, so I'm making something that speaks in feelings instead of facts. Hay helped by analyzing what little data existed about the silence's original form, helped by keeping everything running and fixing things when they broke, watched, offering guidance when needed, but mostly just observing with that eternal smile. On the second day, they were ready. The council had identified the next colony the silence would likely reach. They sent a team there on the fastest ship available. If this didn't work, the council would begin destroying their own colonies in 4 hours. The colony was called Haven Point. It housed 50,000 beings from a dozen different species. They were evacuating as fast as they could, but there wasn't enough time. Thousands would still be there when the silence arrived. The team set up a device in the center of the colony's main plaza. It stood there like a sculpture made of light and sound, waiting to speak a language that no one had used in billions of years. "Will this work?" Hay asked quietly. "I have no idea," admitted. "I'm an artist, not a scientist. This is all just intuition and hope." "Sometimes," said, "hope is the most powerful tool in the universe." The silence arrived exactly when predicted. The sky turned dark despite it being midday. Stars disappeared. All electronic equipment began shutting down. Even the air seemed to grow heavy and still. Then they felt it, a presence, massive and old and infinitely sad. It pressed down on them like the weight of billions of years of loneliness. Activated her device. Colors bloomed into the dark sky. Not just colors, but emotions translated into light. Blue for sadness, gold for hope, purple for longing, red for anger and pain. They swirled together, creating patterns that hurt to look at and impossible to look away from. Sounds followed, not words but feelings expressed through pure tone, a cry of loneliness, a whisper of fear, a shout of rage, a sob of despair. The silence paused. For the first time since the attacks began, it stopped moving, it stopped destroying, it listened. Poured everything into the device. She thought about every time she had felt alone, every time she had been misunderstood, every time she had wanted to scream but had no one to hear. She channeled all of it into colors and sounds. "I see you," the pattern said, not in words but in pure emotion. "I understand your pain. You are not alone anymore." The response came like a wave crashing over them, feelings so strong they brought to his knees. Hay cried out. Evan's light flickered. Images filled their minds. A being that felt too much in a universe that valued feeling too little. A consciousness that experienced beauty and horror so intensely that it frightened others. Exile. Billions of years of silence and darkness. The desperate need to find someone, anyone, who could understand. Adjusted her device, responding to the wave of emotion. "I understand," her creation sang. "I understand what it's like to be too much, to feel things so strongly that others can't relate, to be pushed away because you're different." Another wave came from the silence. This one felt like a question. "Why? Why do you try to understand? Why do you care?" Found his voice. "Because you're not a threat, you're just hurt. And when something is hurt, you try to help it. That's what being human means." The darkness in the sky began to shift. Slowly, carefully, the silence started to take form. It appeared as a massive cloud of shifting colors and lights, similar to but infinitely larger. It hovered over the colony, beautiful and terrifying. Through device, they continued the conversation, not with words but with pure emotion. They showed the silence images of human history, wars and peace, love and hate, art and destruction, all the messy, complicated, contradictory feelings that came with being alive and imperfect. "We understand you," the message flowed. "Because we are like you. We feel too much. We care too much. We're too emotional for our own good. And the advanced species look at us the same way the collective looked at you, as primitives, as dangers, as things to be controlled or removed." The silence responded with something that felt like crying. Relief and pain and joy all mixed together. Stepped forward, their light reaching up toward the massive presence. "Old friend," they said aloud, "you were never a threat. You were just ahead of your time. The collective was not ready for beings who felt so deeply. But perhaps they are ready now. Perhaps this young species can teach them what they could not learn before." The silence turned its attention to. Through's device, they could feel the recognition. These two beings had known each other long ago, before the exile, before the loneliness. "Come back," said gently, "not as a destroyer, as a teacher. Show them that strength comes not from eliminating emotion but from embracing it." For a long moment nothing happened. The fate of billions hung in the balance. Then slowly, carefully, the silence began to change. The darkness lifted. The colors became softer. The oppressive weight eased. Through's device came a single feeling: agreement, acceptance, hope. The colonies that had gone dark suddenly came back online. The beings that had been silenced started moving again. The silence had released them, no longer searching, no longer desperate. Collapsed, exhausted, Hay caught her, lowering her gently to the ground. Stood on shaking legs, barely able to believe what had just happened. "We did it," he whispered. "You did it," corrected. "You saw what others could not. You tried what others would not. You reached out to pain with compassion instead of fear." Above them, the silence began to disperse, but not to leave. Instead, it spread itself across the sky, becoming part of the universe again, no longer exiled, no longer alone. Through the device, one final message came through. It felt like gratitude, like relief, like coming home after an impossibly long journey. And in that moment, finally understood why I had chosen him. Not because he was special, but because he was human. Because humanity, with all its flaws and emotions and stubborn refusal to give up on broken things, represented something the galaxy had lost. They represented hope. The emergency session of the Galactic Collective Council was nothing like the first one. This time, when walked to the center platform, there was no hostility. Instead, there was confusion, wonder, and something that might have been respect. The tree being symbols glowed a soft blue as it addressed the assembly. "The threat has ended. The silence has ceased its attacks and is now in communication with our scientists. Billions of lives have been saved. This was accomplished not through our weapons or our logic, but through the efforts of a human team led by Companion 2. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some sounded approving, others sounded uncertain. Counselor stood, his insect body rigid. For a moment thought the hostile alien would attack the decision, but instead did something unexpected. He bowed. "I was wrong," said, his translated voice carrying through the chamber. "I believed humans were too primitive to be trusted, too emotional to be valuable. I see now that I confused different with inferior. I apologize." Blinked in surprise. "Thank you, Counselor." Another representative stood, a being made of flowing water contained in a transparent form. "I wish to understand. How did you know that emotion would reach the silence when all our logical attempts failed?" "I didn't know," admitted. "I just thought about what I would want if I was alone for billions of years. I'd want someone to understand, someone to care. Facts and data can't give you that. Only emotion can." "But emotion is inefficient," another counselor argued. "It leads to mistakes, to conflicts. We evolved beyond such things to create a peaceful, stable civilization." Light grew brighter. "Did you? Or did you simply learn to hide your feelings so well that you forgot they existed? Look at how you responded to the silence. With fear, with anger, with the desire to destroy what you could not control. Those are emotions, whether you acknowledge them or not. The chamber fell quiet. The uncomfortable truth settled over everyone. Ambassador stepped forward. "If I may speak, I have been Earth's representative to the collective for 12 years. In that time, I have watched our species struggle to be taken seriously. We are told we are too emotional, too violent, too unpredictable. But perhaps those qualities are not weaknesses. Perhaps they are exactly what this civilization needs." The tree being symbols flickered thoughtfully. "What are you suggesting, Ambassador?" "I am suggesting that the collective has optimized itself into a corner. You have eliminated uncertainty, but also creativity. You have removed chaos, but also adaptability. You have created perfect stability, but you have also created stagnation. Humanity could bring something new to this civilization, something you have forgotten how to be." "And what is that?" asked. "Alive," replied simply. Over the following weeks, everything changed. The silence, now communicating through some emotional translation device, began sharing knowledge it had accumulated over billions of years, but it only shared with those who approached with genuine curiosity and empathy. Cold scientific inquiry was met with silence. Emotional connection was rewarded with wisdom. The collective's scientists struggled. They had spent centuries learning to separate themselves from their feelings. Now they had to relearn how to feel in order to learn. But humans adapted quickly. Researchers from Earth joined the project, bringing their messy, emotional approach to understanding. They cried when the silence shared its pain. They laughed at its jokes. They got frustrated and angry and then apologized. And the silence responded to all of it, sharing more with beings who felt than with those who merely thought. Watched all this from New Soul Station, which had become something of a gathering place for humans and aliens interested in this new approach. His small apartment was now a meeting room where beings from dozens of species came to talk about emotion, art, and the messy process of feeling. Hay had been promoted to lead researcher on the Silence Communication Project. She came to visit often, always excited about new discoveries. "It's incredible," she said one evening, showing him data on her tablet. "The silence is teaching us things about the universe that the collective never understood, but only if we approach it with open hearts instead of just open minds." "How are the other species handling that?" asked. "Some better than others. The younger species are adapting faster. They haven't optimized their emotions away yet. The older ones are struggling, but they're trying. That's what matters." Had become famous across the collective. Her emotional translation technology was being installed in every major research facility. She was training others in her techniques, teaching them how to express feelings through art and sound. She had moved to a larger studio on the station, one with windows that looked out at the stars. "I never thought my art would save the galaxy," she told when he visited her new workspace. "I just wanted to help people feel understood." "Maybe that's the same thing," replied. 1 month after the incident with the silence, something remarkable happened. Appeared in Hay's laboratory, glowing brightly, smiling that eternal smile. "Park Hay," said formally, "I'm your chosen companion." Hay dropped the tablet she was holding. "What, but you already chose." Another figure appeared beside. This one looked similar but glowed with a different color spectrum, more green and silver than gold. "I am," the news said, "and I have chosen Park Hay as my companion, and I have decided it is time for a new age, the age of the emotional awakening." Over the next few months, more appeared. They chose companions from various species, not just humans, but they all chose beings who had maintained their emotional cores, who felt deeply and cared genuinely. The collective was changing from the inside out. Continued his work as a mechanic, but now aliens came to him not just to fix machines, but to learn his approach. They wanted to understand how he looked at broken things and saw possibilities instead of problems. One evening, he stood on an observation deck with watching ships come and go from the station. "I need to ask you something," said. "That first day in the cargo bay, you made the broken engine start working. Why?" Smile seemed to deepen. "I did nothing. You fixed it with your hands and your hope. I merely showed others what you had accomplished." "But it happened right after you arrived." Coincidence, or perhaps the universe responding to faith, does it matter? Thought about this? I guess not, but I still don't understand something. You said you chose me because I fix broken things, but the collective wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed. Was it? Asked. A civilization that exiled beings for feeling too much, that valued efficiency over empathy, that was so afraid of change that it nearly destroyed an ancient friend rather than trying to understand it. That sounds quite broken to me. So you chose me to fix the collective? No, I chose you because you would try, even if it seemed impossible. I chose you because when faced with the choice between destroying something different or trying to understand it, you always choose understanding. I chose you because you are exactly what this galaxy needed. I'm just a mechanic. Slight wrapped around like a warm embrace. You are a healer of broken things, and you showed the collective that the most broken thing in the universe is not a machine that stopped working or a being that feels too much. The most broken thing is a heart that has forgotten how to feel. Below them, a collective ship docked. Inside would be scientists and diplomats and traders from 100 worlds, all of them learning to feel again, all of them discovering that emotion was not a weakness to overcome, but a strength to embrace. What happens now? Asked. Now the real work begins. The collective must rebuild itself, not with new technology or new laws, but with new understanding. It will take generations. There will be setbacks. There will be conflicts as beings relearn how to feel and how to handle those feelings responsibly. Sounds messy. Life is messy. Only death is neat and orderly. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, then smiled. You know what's funny? When you first appeared, I thought my life was over. I thought being chosen would ruin everything. But actually, it just helped me see that I was already doing important work. I was already making a difference. I just didn't recognize it. Yes, agreed. That is the nature of true importance. It rarely announces itself with fanfare. It works quietly, fixing one broken thing at a time until suddenly the entire universe has changed. A young human engineer walked past, nodded respectfully at. She was heading to work with an alien team, using emotional intelligence alongside technical knowledge. A few months ago, that would have been unthinkable. Now it was becoming normal. They're going to be okay, said, watching the young engineer disappear down the corridor. Humanity, we're going to be okay in this galaxy. More than okay, replied. You are going to help heal it, one broken connection at a time, one misunderstood being at a time, one impossible problem at a time. That is what humans do best. You never give up on broken things. Even when we should. Especially then. Looked at the glowing being beside him, at the eternal smile that he now understood carried billions of years of wisdom and hope. Why are you smiling? Asked finally. You're always smiling, why? Light pulsed warmly. Because I have seen the universe from its beginning. I have watched countless civilizations rise and fall. And after all that time, after all those species, I have learned one simple truth. The beings who survive, who thrive, who truly matter are not the strongest or the most logical. They are the ones who never stop hopping, the ones who look at broken things and see possibilities, the ones who care enough to try. Like humans. Like you, and yes, like humans in general. Your species is young and flawed and beautifully, impossibly stubborn. You refuse to accept that anything is truly beyond repair. And that refusal, that stubborn hope, is going to change everything. The stars outside the window shined bright and endless. Somewhere out there, the silence was teaching ancient wisdom to beings willing to feel. Somewhere out there, Species were learning to embrace emotion again. And somewhere out there, more were choosing more companions, slowly guiding the galaxy toward a future where feeling deeply was valued as much as thinking clearly. Took a deep breath and smiled. His smile matched now, not because everything was perfect, but because everything was possible. "Come on," he said, turning away from the window. "I have 3 broken engines that need fixing before morning. Want to help?" "Always," replied. And together, the mechanic and the ancient being of light walked through the corridors of New Sol Station, ready to fix whatever needed fixing, one impossible problem at a time.